One of the most life-changing things that happened to me didn't come in the package of me getting a new job or new promotion or achieving a big new goal. It came from me taking a complete step away from work. And the interesting part is it did not require me taking a trip around the world or to Bali or to any other tropical destination. What it required from me was for me to just have the courage to take a real break. And that's what I want to talk about in today's video, because I feel like every woman like you who defines herself as driven, responsible, reliable, high achiever, ambitious should take a sabbatical at some point in her professional career. Now, if I had to put like an age on it, I would say maybe between the ages of, depending on when you started working, maybe 35 and 55, I think that you should take a sabbatical. So just simply put, a sabbatical is an intentional time away from work. And I know for many women, especially Black women, sabbatical isn't even in our vocabulary. So I get it, I understand. But when I took a sabbatical, it changed my life. And I was pushed into taking a sabbatical. That's why I want to talk about it today, because if at possible, I really do feel that every woman at some point in her professional career should plan to take a sabbatical. Now, this is my own personal opinion. My personal opinion is take a minimum of 3 months, but up to a year, because even, some people do take like a month off, like 4 weeks off, go on a long vacation. But I feel like a month really wouldn't touch it. You would need at least 3 months to a year to truly be able to step away from work in a way that is going to truly, truly change your life. So I'm going to talk about my sabbatical experience, but I do understand why, again, for many Black women, like sabbatical, like what is that? Like, that's not even in our vocabulary. But for women who may have thought about taking a sabbatical, or if the idea even just crossed your mind, I get it that there may be reasons why you feel like you can't. It may be due to you don't feel like you can just step away from the job for whatever reasons. You feel like maybe you can't financially do it. Maybe you think that you'll miss out on a promotion or opportunity or whatever the case may be. So I understand that barrier there that may come about, but just hear me out, because just being able to, I'm just thinking back to my sabbatical, just having the ability to step away from work and truly prioritize yourself. It was like nothing I had ever experienced. It was the most glorious, the most nourishing, the best time of my life. So if you're new here, or if you've been watching my videos, I'm doing this 100 days on YouTube to show up every day. I burnt out in corporate America in healthcare leadership several years ago. I burnt out like real bad, like 60 pounds overweight, needing to take 2 types of medication just to be able to go to work, constant anxiety. And the thing is, I was still performing. I was still doing my job well. My body, my mind and body was just silently falling apart. So I decided to take a sabbatical. But here's the thing. I got pushed into it from the burnout, because I knew that I could not stay at that job. But I will say that after I had made the decision to leave the job, put in my resignation, all of those things, I was interviewing for other roles. And I had got into negotiations around salary with one job in particular. And for whatever reason, we just couldn't come to a salary agreement. So I decided not to take the job. But in that same token, I still decided I had put in my resignation. It's like I wasn't worried about it. Like I was still going to leave, even though I did not have another job to fall back into. And I felt fine about it. Like most times I was raised, and I'm sure you were probably raised too, to never leave a job without having something else to fall back onto. But the thing is, girl, like there would have been no way in the state my mind and body was in for me to leave one job and to go to another without taking time off. So God knew what he was doing when we couldn't come to like a salary agreement with that other job, because I wasn't in the condition to leave the job that I was burnt out in and then immediately jump into another job. So I took a sabbatical. Now, after I had came to the realization of like, okay, I'm not going to take this job. I'm going to take a sabbatical. I'm going to take time off. I was like, okay, I'll take 6 months off. That was kind of how I went into it. And I will tell you, girl, like the first the first 3 weeks of my sabbatical, I did nothing, like literally nothing. And I mean, I slept in. It felt good to not have to jump up to an alarm and be rushing around. I just really like did nothing. And I write about it in my book, Release and Renew. But the first like 3 weeks, you would think like, okay, you have all of this weight and all of this pressure off of you from being in this job that burnt you out. But those first 3 weeks, my body felt worse. And I came to find out later, because, you know, I was talking to my therapist all during this time. She shared with me that I just had so much tension in my body from the burnout. Now that my body had physically like stopped and slowed down, my body felt like, I guess, safe enough to then just start like basically purging all of that tension out of me. So like I had a lot of muscle soreness. I didn't feel the best in my body. But after those 3 weeks, I started feeling so good. And the thing is, I had never taken the time, and I'm sure you probably haven't either, taken the time to take care of myself in this way, to just let your brain just breathe and not be in constant analyzing, strategizing, executing, doing, like to simply just be. I mean, we are human beings, not human doing. So I just had never done that. So I really took those 6 months I did do a little bit of traveling, but not much. I did a little bit of traveling, but I took my sabbatical right here in my home state of Florida, at home, because I also know that people, when they hear the word sabbatical, they might think of, oh, you have to travel to Europe, you got to travel to Bali, to like all of these tropical places. And your sabbatical doesn't have to be glamorous. It doesn't have to look like that. Also, what I did on my sabbatical was I volunteered to two very important organizations to me. And it just felt so good to be able to volunteer my time in a way that I wanted to causes that I wanted to. And then just to finally have the time to do that, not spending all your time at a job. I was in a leadership role. So even when I wasn't working, I was working. So it just felt so good to be able to volunteer. I made space for new friends, which we already know that it's hard as adults to make new friends. But during my sabbatical, I just really allowed myself to be open to meeting new friends, taking on invitations that people would invite me to things when in the past I would just say, oh, I'm too busy. I don't have time. I don't want to, like all the excuses we sometimes have. But I really took the time to go to those things that I was invited to, explore my city a little bit more. And I made new friends, and I cherished those like deep friendships too, not just surface level friendships. And then lastly, in addition to as well, I really spent the time like just again, slowing down, taking care of myself, really getting clear on how I wanted my life and my work to look when I decided to go back to work. And then also I was able to deeply reconnect with my creativity, because I've been a creative all my life since I was a child, doing some type of artistic creativity. And when I got into corporate America, those parts of me just slowly like deteriorated away. But during my sabbatical, I was really able to reconnect with that part of me. And it just felt really, really good. And it also allowed me to submit that into me, and just whatever decision that I was going to make after the sabbatical, just letting myself know that I don't ever want to lose that part of me again. So I decided, like I said, that I would take 6 months off. My sabbatical ultimately ended up being 10 months, and I'll go into that in just a moment. But I also just wanted to go back to what I was saying about your sabbatical doesn't have to be this glamorous thing where you're, hopping, globe trotting around the world. You can take your sabbatical right at home in your state, in your city, and your sabbatical can look like you having time to rest, you having time to really prioritize your health, you having the time to build community, to volunteer, to just slow down and do nothing if that's what you decide, to give yourself your mind the time to just not have to always be in production mode, to just be, to let your mind wander, to let new ideas come through. This is how you can spend your sabbatical. And again, it just really allowed me to heal my mind and body in a way that I just never realized. And that's what this sabbatical can be about, just rebuilding your life. And let's say, even if you're in a place in your life where you're in your corporate career or you're in your business and you don't want any change in that way, that's fine too. A sabbatical is still just about stepping away from work intentionally and using that time for you, using that time for whatever you desire outside of having to always be focused on work, because that's where so much of your time, my time, is being spent. So I also want to point out, because I know this is important. So you're like, okay, Erica, you're over here talking about taking a sabbatical, but if we're not working, how are we going to pay for this? So I get it. Taking time away from work, of course, we still have to pay all these bills. So it's not free. So that's why I'm sharing in this video that I would like it if women would start planning for this versus having to be pushed into this. So again, I was pushed into it by my burnout, and I did have savings. I had 6 months of savings where I could pay all of my bills. And of course, I shared with you that my sabbatical went longer than 6 months. So at that 6 month part, basically all of my savings was gone. So what I ended up doing for those additional 4 months was, I have a clinical background as well. So I started picking up some clinical shifts here and there, just in a way that allowed me to make money, but still allowed me to be rest. Like I wasn't doing 40 hours a week. So I picked up some clinical shifts, and then I also did some freelance work, in marketing, writing, graphic design, those types of areas. So taking on those types of jobs allowed me to make money to pay my bills, and still the time to prioritize my health and wellness. So I do want to put it out there, but it would be my recommendation that if you're planning for a sabbatical, then you will have the time to plan for whatever your financial situation may be. Again, I was pushed into it and used my savings. And if I'm honest, I haven't been able to save 6 months worth of savings again. But that money to me was well spent. That investment in myself and my health and wellness was well spent, and I'd do it again. I do want to highlight some alternate paths that you may be able to take, because as I've had conversations with women about me taking a sabbatical and how I just, with how my sabbatical changed my life, I wish more women would prioritize that for themselves at some point in their professional career. I've heard women finding alternative ways to take that time off. So one of those ways is taking FMLA. And I believe you can get up to 3 weeks. No, not 3 weeks, 12 weeks for FMLA. And I think that's the standard in all of the US, I believe. But that's something that you might want to talk to your physician about, especially if you're in a season of navigating burnout or chronic stress or chronic anxiety. Those types of things, you might be able to talk to your physician about FMLA. That might be an option. Medical leave might also be an option. Again, especially if you're navigating high levels of stress in your work, that might be something that you could talk to your doctor about. And then, with FMLA and medical leave, those types of leave, if it's granted or offered by your corporation, your job, and signed off by your medical provider, those types of leave secure you your job. And then lastly, you can negotiate these breaks the same way people like negotiate PTO or salary or bonuses. You can negotiate this type of time off in your job, in your corporation, especially if you're new, or any time, like, that like your annual performance review, that might be an opportunity for you to negotiate some extended time off. So those are some ways that I have been hearing other women talk about taking a sabbatical, especially those women who, you're not in a space that where you want to just flat out quit your job or transition into another industry or job. So those are some alternate options for taking a sabbatical. The thing, every time I have a rough patch or a rough, like if I have a rough week, I just think back to like all the things I did during my sabbatical, and it just warms my heart. It was the best time of my life. Even if I'm honest, okay, so I took 10 months off. 6 months I had paid for. 3 months I kind of took jobs intermittently, clinical jobs and freelance jobs. But that last month, that 10th month, I had to call my parents and ask them for help, and thank God they were able to help me. So I'm not speaking from this place like willy-nilly and not understanding that it's not something that you can just do overnight. But that's why I'm saying I really feel like you should plan for this. The way that it changed my life, even with me being pushed into it and me being able to find a way to pay my bills at the tail end of the sabbatical, I would still do it all over again, just because of the impact that it had on my overall health and wellness. The healing that occurred, the clarity that occurred, the mental space that I was able to have to look at things differently, and then just get clear on how I wanted to move when I decided to get back into corporate America, and the way that I wanted to build my life, and then allowed me the capacity, both the emotional and mental capacity, to then start stepping into that woman that I wanted to become. So that's why I'm just like, I am so pro sabbaticals. And I really do feel like you at some point in your professional career should plan to take a sabbatical. It will literally change your life in ways that you probably would not expect. I'm Erica Prevail, and I share daily conversation. And if any of this resonated with you, let me know down in the comments. Give this video also a like. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. I'll be here tomorrow, and I'm sharing daily conversations like this, helping ambitious women rework their relationship with ambition, capacity, rest, and creativity. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.